Okay, well, thank you all for joining. We're so glad you're here. My name is Kara Wasink, and I am marketing assistant at Symposia. We're so glad that you could join us. And today we're going to have a marketing manufacturing focus, but a lot of these things will pertain to the foundation of marketing in any industry. So COVID-19 challenged marketing teams to reduce budgets in a lot of different companies. But they need to be just as effective and personable with those without those in-person marketing opportunities. There have been a lot of trade shows canceled, removing a large lead generator in this space. And with budgets being reduced, it's a lot to figure out of what's coming up next. So like I said, my name is Kara. I work at Symposia. We're a full service digital marketing agency. I help a lot with our events and manage these types of things and connect with great people like Tim and Betsy. Today we'll be joined by Tim, who is the CEO and founder of Symposia, with experience, a great lot of experience in digital marketing. And we're also going to be joined by Betsy. Betsy Grant is a marketing communications professional specializing in the manufacturing space for more than 6 years. She recently served as the global marketing communications manager for a parent company of 15 entities in manufacturing, and she managed a $1.5 million budget and marketing efforts to get that budget up to $3 million in sales and opportunity every year. Since then, she's been doing a lot of consulting while looking for her next long-term position, but we're so glad to have her join us today. And during the presentation, we will be having a couple of polls that we'd love for you to participate in. Tim and Betsy are going to be discussing some of those results, and we're excited to have you participate in those following each poll. Please feel free to post any questions in the Q&A, send us a message in chat. We'd love to be as interactive and connect with you as much as possible. And reach out to us on LinkedIn, email. We'd just love to connect with you on this topic. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our guest speaker, Betsy, and let her get started with the great content we have for you today.
Thank you, Kara, and thank you, Symposia, for partnering with me today to present this content of really what it comes to as my experience in the manufacturing industry and what I've found to be successes and also not so much in terms of marketing tactics. So thank you all again for joining. And with that, we are going to get into our first poll actually. So I'll launch that poll right now, which is, what is your greatest marketing roadblock in the manufacturing industry? So what have you found to get in the way of you truly being successful? And I know I've listed a few options here, but please share others in the chat. Tim and I will be dialoguing, like Kara said, through the entire webinar. So I know in my experience, a lot of my roadblocks were lack of marketing knowledge, to be honest. So a lot of the departments in my past organizations just didn't understand what the heck marketing did. So that's an easy start or place to start, right? So I'll give you guys a couple more moments to fill in that poll. Please share your knowledge in chat and also in feedback in the poll. But in the meantime, Tim, what have you found your clients to struggle with in terms of marketing roadblocks?
So I think one of the number one roadblocks that everyone in this space has struggled with in the last 6 months is simply the fact that all trade shows pretty much across the board have been canceled. So
yes,
we've got sales and marketing teams that are used to generating a significant amount of their leads around those trade shows. And many of those trade shows went virtual, but some of them also did not go virtual. And when they did go virtual, not all of them succeeded to quite the degree that they had in previous years when they met in real life. So they didn't generate as much activity in some of those instances for the marketing and sales teams.
Yeah.
So
and it's a
that's
hard transition. Yeah, it's a hard transition, right? To being as personable over, through this medium that we're using today versus being in person and being able to learn more about those customers or clients' needs. So I completely understand and agree with that, Tim. So it looks like what we're seeing in the poll right now is, and I'll post these for everybody to see, is a majority of you who are attending are unable to quantify those efforts to sales win, which is common not only in the manufacturing industry, but also in other industries. So we'll definitely talk about some options and ideas in order to help quantify those efforts and show the data behind what you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis. So the other seems to be the limited budget, which again, this is what this whole webinar is about. So I'm happy that everybody is agreeing that, hey, it's hard to build that budget if you can't even quantify results. So Tim, do you have any thoughts on what we're seeing here?
Well, I think when it comes to not being able to quantify marketing efforts to sales wins, one of the things that we've seen to work well there is to go through the leads that you're generating with the actual sales team, and to maybe even have some shared sheet, or ideally CRM. I think we're also seeing that play out this year as a lot of manufacturing type companies focus more heavily than they had before on deploying or accelerating the existing CRM and then attached marketing automation.
Yes, and all of those tools too, which are more and more prevalent to or important to share throughout the organization, all the way from the C-suite down to your integrators, who your team members are. So we'll talk about the CRM and the importance of automation later on the presentation, as well as what the heck can you do organically. So thanks, Tim. Moving forward, we are going to talk about the model that we'll use today to present this content. So the way that this webinar will be structured is based on a plan, create, and optimize model for the foundation that I found to be a very successful marketing strategy that involves minimum effort. Everybody loves to hear this: minimum effort, minimum budget to start, until you grow those activities, grow your team, and grow your budget ultimately. So what you'll see today is all content put together, like I'd mentioned, based on my experience working in the manufacturing industry, initially as a team of one, before I was able to grow my budget to that $1.5 million number that Kara had mentioned. So starting with the planning portion of the model, let's talk about how to build a successful forecast before acting on your strategy. So, I mean, again, before we talk about marketing on a lean budget, it's important to identify your goals. And this might seem really trivial or remedial, but this also defines your budget. So many companies that I've had experience with just don't really refer back to marketing goals and act on what they think works best, what they've seen with their eyes, but also their opinions. So setting even small goals and reaching them builds credibility throughout your organization. Sharing your goals with as many people as possible, even if they don't care, so that they recognize that you are meeting those goals. So an example of one of my goals from a past position, generate top placements on Google through SEO campaigns driven by technical content that use targeted keywords. And you might be thinking to yourself, whoa, that's a lot of words, right? That's a really loaded goal. Well, that's using the SMART method, right? Which is specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time related. So using that SMART method, you also provide yourself with a comprehensive goal that you can then share throughout the organization. So talking about goals again, they're supported by strategies, objectives, and tactics. And this GHOST method is something that I've used since the beginning of my career, just to understand the various levels of granularity that you have in a goal. Because what a goal is ultimately is what you'd like to accomplish. But those are all high-level descriptors, so they tend to be qualitative. In this example, a goal could be become an authority on lean production. And the objectives that you have support that goal. And objectives tend to be specific, measurable outcomes. So again, in this example, let's achieve 40% more leads on our website within 6 months. That provides a quantitative goal of how many leads you want, where you want to gain them, and then a timetable on which you wish to succeed. And then strategies are the high-level plan that you follow to achieve that first goal. And how do we accomplish those objectives, which then support that goal? So to accomplish this objective, we might offer a free educational white paper on our website in order to bring more leads to our website. And then lastly, tactics. Those are the actual actions. Those are the nitty-gritty everyday things that you're doing to achieve your goal ultimately. So this could be anything from in this example, using PPC to drive traffic to the free white paper, sharing the white paper on social media, etc. But what I found that works the best, especially in this goal type of model, is to make sure that you're delegating these tactics to those on your team, whether it be another department that's helping you out, your sales team members, but those in each area that could best support your goal with their strengths. So we'll talk about more of the planning stage next, but again, always start with your goals, establish those to revisit. So next, we really need to understand who the heck we're trying to target here, right? Who is your audience? What's their age? What are their interests? Answering these questions helps you deliver the right content to your audience in the way that they prefer. So for example, a mechanical engineer, they won't be looking at your social media pages for the technical specifications. They want to see that on your website, but what they do want to see is pictures of innovative machinery that your company has recently launched. What is this company doing that's applicable to me, and why should I care? So that will help your audience spend more time learning about your brand if they're seeing the type of content in the channels that they typically spend time. For example, we have in manufacturing plenty of common, internal, external audience groups. But what I've found to be the 4 main groups are customer, employee, investor, and leadership team member. So to get even more granular, 2 examples that I have up on the screen here are a customer group. So a manufacturing engineer per se. They want to see the technical content that can help them do their job better. So this should be educational blogs or articles, and then product pages on your website that are up to date and they're accurate, right? They're not trying to sell you on something. And then you have your internal employee, which we're saying today is a CNC machinist. Their consumption styles vary whether they're in the office or on the shop floor. So, this specific employee, the CNC machinist, might not have access to a computer. So they would have to rely on receiving communication from you that is on a shop floor flyer or an intranet article. But either way, it has to change based on persona. So figuring out how you reach each persona and also identifying other potential touch points. Last year, for example, I partnered with an agency to conduct a brand audit. This gauged each persona's perception of the brand. Unfortunately, this did help immensely, but it identified weaknesses between our audience's expectation and what our reality was, how they wanted to see our brand and what we were actually giving them. So I'll talk about a version of that audit in a moment, but having both of those perceptions clear to you is very important. So the next stage of planning that I like to go through is identifying what are we doing now? What's your current strategy and what's working, what's not? So I have, there's a variety of marketing audits that you'll be able to find online, which they're great resources and they can guide you through more comprehensive audits. But the next slide is really my personal abbreviated checklist, so that when I enter into an organization or I'm revisiting past year's strategy, I have some sort of consistent benchmark. So I'll share this with you. And if I didn't mention before, all of these slides and a recording will also be available on Symposia's website and social channels after the webinar. So my marketing audit, first checklist item, revisit your mission, vision, and values. Are they even set? Is this something that you can help develop? Because your marketing strategy should always support this and all of the content that you are creating. Does my marketing strategy support these, and how will I continue to further that vision into my content? Second is review your marketing goals and objectives. So will your goals still apply 3, 6, 9 months down the road? And do I have short-term and long-term goals? Third is describe and update your audience targets. So the personas that you have when you start a business aren't going to be the same as when your business has become more senior in the market. So continue to revisit those, interview your audiences, ask them how they feel about the brand. And then reviewing past year's marketing budget. This is important to see what you spent versus what you actually needed. what you thought would work and what you might need to pull out of your budget for the next year. So are the marketing strategies you adopt appropriate compared to the company's resources? So evaluating, next on the list, evaluating the effectiveness of marketing activities carried out, which I just touched on, but using a SWOT analysis. So are the activities that you're putting forth in your strategy, are they cost effective and profitable? So gathering customer feedback helps with all of these auditing procedures, but does it support your customers' needs? Are their needs changing through the sales cycle as they continue to be a customer or potentially leave for your competition? And last but not least, aligning your strategy with company goals. So does your strategy support where the company is headed? This is important because if your strategy is so far off and using tactics that your leadership team or manager has never heard of before, and they're focused on revenue, you have to figure out how to really factor your strategy into just building revenue. It might not be the focus that you're looking for, but you need, again, those small wins to move forward. So the last, second to last part of the planning process for me, who are your marketers? So who's your team? Defining that staffing need based on your marketing plan could look like a mix of internal and external marketers. So my past experience, I've worked with 2 full-time marketing staff, but also agency partners and countless what I've called marketing champions. So these are departments across the company, such as sales, leadership team members, administration, and sometimes even IT. And if you are willing to talk with them about your needs, sometimes they say, hey, I have a free hour every week. I could dedicate that to helping with crafting email marketing strategies. You'd be surprised if you just simply survey your own company if they want to help and actually, be that support for you. I found in the 6 years that I've worked in manufacturing that to be the truth. So my main point here too is before you go hiring a marketing team, start with a generalist that could already be actually on your team in another department, like I mentioned, but one that can handle multiple competencies, because sales team members, like I said, and admin can often act as extensions of the marketing team, but we need to prove that marketing activities can be successful, and then you can pitch to your leadership team to add team members. But until you have those small wins, it's very difficult to prove that you need a new hire. So with that, we're going to break up the content again a little bit and launch our next poll. So this poll, how frequently do you revisit your marketing strategy? It could be weekly, monthly, quarterly, never. I'm not going to judge whatever you do, but I've most often found that, recognizing a quarterly revisit for your strategy will show best efforts in trying to stay up to date with organizational goals. But Tim, what's your perception on revisiting strategy here? What are your clients doing?
I think that you have to revisit this strategy on a monthly basis almost to see if it needs to be revised. One of the ways that you can do that is by staying really in close contact with the sales team, right? What's selling, what's not selling, what markets are opening, what markets are closing. You want that constant feedback so that you can revise your strategy. We think of strategy as something that requires constant optimization. There's no just set it and forget it.
No, it's a lot of looking at what your efforts are producing, right? And then adjusting. And like you said, on a monthly basis, if you're able to do that, that is a huge win in order to keep your efforts changing and looking different. So I'm going to post the results of this poll now, and it looks like a lot of our attendees agree with quarterly and even yearly. So I'm just happy to see that people are revisiting their strategies, because I can't tell you how much I've seen companies just put something in place and then after it's approved, never look at it again and just move on to the day-to-day. So this is great news that you guys are actually revisiting this, and we'll now move into the next portion of our content. So moving into create, we've planned now, we know what our forecast looks like. Now it's time to actually get our hands dirty and create what we hope to be our marketing strategy. These components that I've listed here are abbreviated, but they're what have been proven to be successful for me to focus on in the manufacturing industry. So following your planning, again, and how many marketing activities you deem necessary, it's time to start creating. The creation focus areas, again, are mostly organic. So I know, when are we going to get to this lean marketing stuff? Right now, we're going to talk about how to use your time and avoid additional costs. So organic meaning they'll take your time, again, no additional cost, but these are activities, again, that I've used in my professional career. So let's get into it. Marketing plan, that seems pretty obvious, right? Duh, I need a marketing plan, but you'd be surprised at the amount of times that I've seen marketers use the same plan year after year. We talk about revisiting strategy. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you don't have time, or leadership doesn't have time to hear you. So it's important from year to year to research those changing trends in the industry, in manufacturing, and whatever industry you're in, but also how your personas are receiving these tactics, marketing tactics. So ask yourself this question: are you marketing across your entire buyer journey at all touch points? So collaborating with leadership on organizational goals we've talked about, but performance metrics, those identify marketing goals. So if leadership doesn't back your marketing, sometimes there's there's rarely a sufficient budget for a full plan. And ironically, sometimes doing nothing is the best option for leadership. So let's get into the components of a marketing plan. So aside from summary, mission, vision, and values, in my experience, a basic marketing plan should include these components. And if you're starting from scratch, focus on those organic essentials that you can accomplish in-house and then build from there. And we'll talk about that more later. So year in review, this has proven to be very important to include if you've been working at an organization for a while. Show the leadership team your successes first, what worked, and then the SWOT analysis that follows that will show then the weaknesses. But you, of course, want to highlight all of those successes and the strengths first so that they know that you're doing a good job. And then new marketing trends. I touched on this a little bit, but content visualization or video marketing has been so prevalent in the last couple of years. So transitioning manufacturing from just finally getting into social media marketing, right? And then moving them into another tier of content marketing. So that was hard in my last couple years of marketing and manufacturing. But what other trends are prevalent? How else can we reach our users? And then those goals that we talked about, using the GHOST model. So digital marketing, branding and messaging, sales and communication have been my main areas of defining goals and all of the supporting tactics, objectives, and strategy for those goals. And then reporting. How are you going to show everybody that has expectations of you what you're doing and how it's accomplishing your goals? We'll talk about that later as well. But what I really want to touch on in this marketing plan is the budget. So I use what I call a good, better, best budget. I've used this over the years. It's been resoundingly popular because it provides you with three things. You're being conscious of the company's resources. You care to give options, and you're able to pitch the best options that would benefit the company the most. So yes, if they're a cheap company, they don't know if marketing really will reach their company objectives, they might go with the good, which you don't want to say is the cheapest, but it's the cheapest. So giving options, again, great idea. Try the good, better, best type of budget. So next in our creation portion is we're going to talk a little bit about marketing technology. So my biggest suggestion, use affordable marketing technology. There are opportunities that involve free options in marketing technology these days. It's almost impossible to avoid these newer marketing technology options to help manage your digital marketing efforts. And there's a good reason for that, to be honest. A lot of these tools are free and they connect with each other, giving you the ability to see across your entire marketing mix and easily report on each activity. So the tools we're talking about, I have listed on the left side of the screen here. We're talking email marketing, social media management, content management systems for your website, CRMs for sales, project management, reporting, and then automation. But automation is a huge hitter here because it allows you to focus on the big picture instead of being in the day-to-day maintenance efforts. Get yourself out of there once you have your foundation of marketing planned. So when I talk about automation, I'm talking about all-in-one marketing automation tools, email marketing automation, social media, and advertising. Those are the main automation types that I've used in manufacturing. So let's talk about what are the names of these tools. So we just listed the types of tools, and here I've listed a mix between my personal experience with these tools, but also I pulled from a source on socialpilot.com, what are the most used versus the cost-effective marketing tools. So I have used most of these cost-effective tools in my career, and I can say it's better to learn on these tools first and then eventually upgrade to a paid or more expensive option. And those are typically in the most used category that I have in the slide. So I can share the source information, by the way, with anybody that would like it after the webinar. Please reach out to me. It does offer a lot more options than what I'm presenting here, but this is what I feel in terms of the cost-effective tools best represents where you could get started with some of the technology here. And the best news is that most of these cost-effective tools have free, even though it's limited user usage, they have free options for smaller businesses. So check into these if you don't already have established, but also if you do have established tools, take a look at these tools anyways, because they might perform better than what you're using right now. If you'd like to talk more into the nitty-gritty of these tools, again, happy to get in a conversation after the webinar. I've used most of them. All right, time for poll number 3. So what, if any, marketing tools have you used, or marketing automation tools have you used? So I'll launch that here. There we go. So when, at my last 2 positions in manufacturing, we didn't have a centralized CRM. We didn't have a single point of marketing automation. So this was spread out across the board. So I'm really looking for, and feel free to throw your answers in chat too, I'll check that in a moment, but what does your mix look like? What do you use? And if there's nothing, or the options aren't, reflective of what you do use, please throw them in the chat again. But Tim, what of these tools are you mostly seeing, or what does Symposia use?
I think we're seeing a lot of HubSpot, Pardot, Salesforce.
Yeah.
Marketo is a player there as well. I think when it comes to marketing automation, some of these other tools, such as like Constant Contact or MailChimp, are really a great baseline, but they tend to be kind of the stepping stone to the next platform.
Yes. Yep. And I mean, those that you mentioned, specifically HubSpot, seems to be more of an all-encompassing tool, whereas Constant Contact, that's specific to email marketing. But like, again, what you said, it's a stepping stone. So you can find in a lot of the Pardot, the marketing automation tool from Salesforce and HubSpot, the all-encompassing tools that really bring all those types of automation into one. So, all right, let's end this poll and then talk about these results here. All right, so we did get a lot of popularity with Constant Contact and HubSpot. I love HubSpot, it's one of my favorite tools. And then we also have, all right, Jim is using a newcomer, VBout, and I've actually never heard of this one before. So everybody take note. He's saying that they charge a lot less than others and base it on the number of email sends per month and not the number of contacts. So good customer service, so check VBout out. And then, yeah, if you want to start with a more beginner level tool again, check out those tools like Constant Contact, iContact, MailChimp for email marketing, and then those others that I had listed on the previous slide that could help you at least get a beginner's knowledge or practice before you graduate to something like Constant Contact or HubSpot. Thanks for everybody's feedback here. This has been great. So we're still in the creation stages here because we have to talk about a few other things that I found to be very pertinent in manufacturing. And but your brain's first impression. Everybody is now on their phones with information at their fingertips 24/7. So it's important that what they see first when they're researching your brand is accurate. Although, you know, a lot of companies in manufacturing can create flawless product specs, they typically do not monitor or update their online channels to the extent that their audience expects. Sometimes it could be once a quarter, but your audience might be checking your product out once a week to talk to their manager about purchasing, say, a machine. So that's still not enough. We need to be actively monitoring these channels, and they should be updated on almost a weekly basis. And last, important note here is if your audience doesn't have anything new to consume via your channels, then they will go elsewhere. They will end up on your competitor's site that has information that lists, that has the right keywords, that is in the top couple placements in Google. So this effort does take your time managing this first impression, and your time is money. I get that, but use a content calendar, plan that content out for 3 to 6 months at a time, and then get it scheduled. That way, and this is what I typically do with my content across channels, this only leaves the weekly adjustments, monitoring, and audience engagement that you have to reply to. So, talking more about online channels, it's more likely that that first impression again for a new lead will be online, again, in your owned media that you control. So what does your website look like? Does it answer all of their questions? And is it easy to navigate? Does it have good user experience? Do you have an updated Google business profile and social handles on relevant platforms? So they need to have the ability to understand your brand during their first interaction, which sometimes with our limited attention spans can be pretty darn quick these days, right? So this checklist that I have here includes my 3 recommendations to consistently monitor throughout the year. So update or redesign your website so that they're easy to navigate. And this has a huge push on mobile too, because again, at your fingertips, most people spend about 4 hours per day on their phones. That screen time that we all hate to see on our iPhones or Androids, it's not fun to see, but it's true. So make sure that that experience, especially on mobile, is good. Create and update relevant social media channels that post educational content. So what channels are actually applicable? I found in manufacturing this to be mainly LinkedIn. And we'll talk more about other specific targets later. And then lastly, your Google business profile. We're not e-commerce, so we don't need to make sure that your hours are incredibly accurate all the time, because you're probably talking to whoever you're meeting with via email. But make sure that profile is up to date for those details, because sometimes if you have a new lead and they're coming to meet with you about a product, they can't find your location. That's a good sign for your organization. And then contact information. That's the second most important. So another cost-free curation tactic is to constantly be building a repository of educational content to share with your audience. So answer their questions that they didn't even know they had. They're consuming information, again, at their fingertips all the time. So you need to show them why you are the subject matter expert on your product offering. So to maintain and continually create content, I suggest first starting with these organic content activities. So again, we're circling around the website. That's a big educational resource that helps promote your business across Google and other search engines, but make sure that it provides up-to-date product specs or with collateral that you build for print that also serves the same purpose so that they can find what they're looking for. Build a blog. This also helps with a lot of SEO efforts and keyword research. Build that blog and positions you with those answers to the questions they didn't know they had. Create an email marketing campaign that serves your customers with the latest trends within the industry. So you're not just focused on sell, sell, sell. You want to educate. You want people to know that you're also, very invested in the research part of the industry and understanding where the industry is headed next. And then lastly, once you have that good repository, reuse and recycle and repurpose. Turn that long form into short form on your social media. Turn a blog into social media post, etc. You'll find most success and then hopefully less heartache over not having time to create as much content when you do this. So my next creation slide is more of a research and then growth suggestion. So what digital channels does your brand need to be present in? Be where your buyers are online. Where do your prospects go online for information? And what do they read and listen to? And this is going back to marketing 101, I know, but let's talk through the owned, earned, and paid media channels. So manufacturers must dominate these owned assets first to make a foundation for the paid and earned assets to lead to. Buyers in manufacturing tend to be looking at product sourcing and supplier discovery platforms, such as ThomasNet, for example. So look at what platforms would be appropriate for your business and keep an updated and potentially sponsored profile. But let's talk about owned media. So owned media channels are channels you create and control, such as your company website, social media, email marketing, and print or digital collateral forms, and then sales team, believe it or not, your sales team members. Once you've championed your own media, then you will start to see earned media naturally. When you are not seeing the earned media you'd like, that's when you consider, in my opinion, paid media. In past manufacturing positions, I would focus paid media and print and display ads of trade shows that we would exhibit at, such as Automotive Testing Expo or IMTS, or remarketing ads after launching a product. So earned, again, that tends to be your audience that are sharing your posts or stories about your brand, the news article or media relations, or word of mouth, which is also still a very powerful tool. So if you would like to talk more about, again, my opinion on any of these media channels and what was most relevant when I was in manufacturing, please feel free to reach out after the webinar. But we'll move on here. So last but most definitely not least, running marketing campaigns to catch your audience's attention based on what's happening in your company. So there is definitely a reason that we won't ever forget Nike's "Just Do It" slogan, right? Marketing campaigns tend to stick with us for a long time after an impression or purchase because they actually make companies memorable. They don't have to be expensive either. So campaigns promote a focused effort that guides your audience towards a desired action, and typically they follow a consistent theme. Marketing campaigns I've created for manufacturing have been designed with different types of goals in mind, such as building or rehabilitating a brand image, or sometimes introducing a new product. So I'll give an example of one of my past campaigns on the next slide, but in my opinion, to successfully run a campaign, you will require tools that we've talked about to reach your audience. Anywhere from email marketing, a blog post, LinkedIn advertising, etc. But these are the methods of hosting your message. But referring back to your paid, earned, and owned media channels for options of how to promote your campaign, focus on those organic channels and then support with paid if needed. Don't just jump into paid if you need to either educate yourself first or understand what's the success rate of those owned channels. So this example that I'll give, that actually is a real example from my professional career, was to launch a new slogan and messaging, which happens all the time, right? I started this campaign, or I started my planning process, moreover, by defining a campaign deadline and timeline to give myself and then my manager, parameters to work within. So looking back at those media channels, I worked primarily within our free owned channels. And this is, again, a cost-effective way to at least start a campaign before you grow it. So I worked primarily in the channels we had control over, developing an email campaign, creating a digital brochure, and posting on social media. None of which was sponsored. We just kept running those organic tactics. And this campaign stemmed from that brand audit I mentioned earlier and applied to all of our audiences, internally and external. So I first started by developing a communication schedule for email marketing campaigns, social media, and sales presentations to update our audiences on what this new slogan and the messaging was about and how it related to them. The main messaging was hosted throughout our website, but the story was mainly told on our About Us page, where we pushed all of our digital efforts to. So, right, we need a landing page for our audience to actually read more about the campaign. And then print and digital brochures were created to aid sales team members to explain the changes that customers may be seeing throughout the brand. Does it involve a rebrand or a change to the logo? When you see the slogan, what does it mean? So lastly, all references to our slogan and main messaging were updated across our digital channels and on any internal presentations or paperwork that might be circulating throughout the organization. So as you can see, all of the efforts that I used in this specific campaign were organic, that I had control over, and we could create a timely schedule for. We didn't end up sponsoring any or like putting more paid efforts into each of these campaign tactics. So now we're getting close to the end of our creation, our creation section. So I wanted to launch the next poll. And this poll is, what digital channels does your specific manufacturing organization focus on to connect with customers? And if you're not in manufacturing, take that and apply it to your own industry. So launching the poll now. And the options I have here, again, we have an other section. And if you want to share that, please post in the chat. But Tim, I'm going to throw it back over to you. What channels do you see the majority of your clients promoting their business on right now?
It's definitely a mixture. However, some of our most successful channels are paid search, organic search, LinkedIn, both organic and paid. And then of course, we can't forget email, which is still a very popular channel, both on the other end and on the marketing side.
Okay. Yeah, I have to say in my experience, a lot of the channels that we relied on were the website and email marketing were our two hot ones, because our sales team members were looking for ways to properly and professionally share any news that they had on their projects, which we found to be direct marketing via email. And also, let's post a blog about it. Let's post an announcement and highlight that, and then have a link for the sales team to use. So a lot of sales enablement here. So I'll give a couple more moments for everybody to fill out that poll. Oh, looks like we're good here. All right, so let's publish those results and talk about that. So as we thought, Tim, email marketing was definitely a winner here, still very popular, despite being very competitive to how do we get that readership? How do we get that click to open to click ratio up and people to read our content? So any surprises here for you?
I don't think so. I think when it comes to email marketing, though, we're seeing that the way to success is really to make sure that you're taking your email game up a notch. So you can do that with better content by sharing blog pieces and other informational pieces. You can also do that by using video in your email, which is really fun.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier, video is becoming such a prominent tool now to catch eyes because attention spans are faltering right now. So the longer your content piece is, the less that they'll read, ironically. But if they have a visual, even if it's a graphic or a video, like Tim mentioned, it tends to win readership. And then we have one too in the chat from Tom, who says they have an organizational email newsletter as well. So that falling in that email marketing group for email newsletters for both customers and internally for employees to be those brand ambassadors again, huge tools. It's great that everybody is resonating with these options as well. All right. And then moving on, we're to our final section in this webinar. So talking about optimizing our efforts. So whenever you try a new marketing effort, you need to be monitoring the success of that effort in some way. And that's where optimization comes in. So this part is pretty simple, but it can have a lot of options. I'll say that. In order to continue to secure marketing budget from year to year, it's important to track the success of this marketing of all of your marketing efforts, even when there's nobody asking for it. In my experience in manufacturing, I found it hard to actually get my successes in front of people. So this could be developing a routine reporting schedule, either having a monthly meeting with C-suite or whomever you're reporting your successes to run through a report, or a monthly email that could include just a few marketing wins, bulleted points. Whatever reporting that you decide on, this needs to allow a benchmark to be set so that leadership's involvement can see the connection between marketing efforts and revenue goals. But I mean, the big question is, what do you report on? In manufacturing, the KPIs or key performance indicators differ a lot by company. So based on what is deemed successful by that company and their organizational goals. So for example, in the past, I have provided leadership teams with a monthly dashboard of what I call success metrics instead of KPIs. And those were specifically lead generation, email interactions, digital channel traffic, marketing resource consumption, and event results. So this typically included screenshots from reports within my marketing and monitoring tools, such as Google Analytics, Sprout Social, iContact. But there's a more robust way to do it. And the tool that we'll highlight today is Google Data Studio. In this tool specifically, you're able to comprehensively visualize your data into customizable dashboards and reports, pulling from a wide variety of sources. So the Google platform products, for example, which I'm sure you're using at least one of, this could be Google Ads, Analytics, Sheets, YouTube, which isn't Google platform, but Search Console as well, and then your social media platform. So it can pull all of that together and really pull an actual dashboard versus you trying to pick and pull from your various tools across your mix. So an example of the Google Data Studio specifically on the slide is comparing Google, LinkedIn, Bing, and Twitter ads to make more calculated decisions on where to pour your investment in social media advertising. So I'm curious to hear, and we'll jump into the Q&A section in a minute, but more from Tim here, because I haven't used this tool as much as he has. What have you found with this tool to be most successful, and how have you used it with your clients?
So the word you used there was comprehensive, and I think that's ultimately the nicest thing about using Google Data Studio is that you can pull in data from multiple places. In some ways, this is similar to other tools like Microsoft BI, but I think it's better suited for marketing and marketers. Another thing that we've done with Google Data Studio that's been really helpful, especially in the manufacturing world, there's often a leader or a decision maker who is a little bit more high-level metrics driven, and then there's sometimes a marketing person or a marketing team that is more interested in the day-to-day. So separating it out into like a leadership side and a team deep dive side can work really well. Again, just depending on the org chart and who all is involved.
Yeah, and that's really a trial and error process, right, Tim? Putting what you think the widgets of the data in front of your leadership team or whomever you're reporting to, and finding out what resonates, and then adjusting your reporting dashboard from there. And Tim, one of my main questions too for the audience and for you to answer is, how much does this tool cost?
It is free, with of course the exception of the fact that you have to figure out how to set it up if you're not going to pay someone to do it for you. But it is free, and you don't necessarily need to know that much to get started with it.
Yep. It has integrations that pull that data again across from those tools that you're using. So I would highly recommend, and I'm sure Tim would as well, just spending a little bit of time in learning Google Data Studio and understanding how it can help you, especially what we talked about from the very beginning, quantify those marketing efforts to show results, to show data, because that's what matters to a lot of the C-suite members. Anything else on this, Tim, or do you want to jump into Q&A?
I would just say check out Supermetrics. That's the connector that we use, and it is one of my favorites. So you use that in conjunction with Google Data Studio to pull in other data sources.
All right, Supermetrics, remember that one. Okay, so that wraps up our webinar, but if you haven't already, please submit some questions, any questions about the content that we've presented today into your Zoom dashboard, and we'll address those now. So we'll stick on the line for probably another 5 minutes just to hang out, answer any questions, or dialogue about anything that you would like to talk about. And then while those are coming in, I would just like to thank everybody again for joining. Again, we'll be sending out a PDF copy of this presentation or have the recording available to all attendees and on Symposia's website in the coming week. And Tim and I's contact information is right here. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to broaden our networks with you fine people. And whether it's an email, again, or LinkedIn message, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to have a separate conversation about today's content.